words are meaningless! Why resist? Fury of the
The others
cosmos!
found strength in their projections. They became reliant on it. Not so.
Boom! Die. Towards. Bends. Inescapable.
Arrogant toy. Do what I say.
I've been hurt!
You will be a survivor, or you will. You are well prepared for the end. This is you have been captured.
Hello and welcome, Exiles. This is the Scion Righteous Fire Ascendant taken to the maximum. I thought my last update on this build was going to be my last. I didn't plan to take the build to this level, but there were a lot of people that wanted to see it there, and they donated their currency, their gear, and it was a lot of effort from the people that wanted to donate their gear to me donating over a month of my time crafting this gear. When you get into mirror tier crafting, it is a grind. Normally I like crafting, and even this project burnt me out, because if you're crafting for a month straight, guess what? You're not playing the real game. You're not going around killing bosses. You're not trying out new builds. But I think in the end it will all be worth it, because I think it's a really cool character, and it'll give access points for somebody else if they want to create the character in the future. If you want to mirror the gear in Standard or in League, just message me. I will hop on. No mirror fee. I obviously couldn't have afforded this gear without the help of all the people that donated their builds. Thank you if you were one of those people. It meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to the people wanting to see this project all the way through. Now, without further ado, let's get into the gear that was crafted thanks to the funding of all the donations of people who wanted to see this project done. Dusk Eye starting this thing off. We went for strength, percent life. These are our ideal implicits. We're very happy with this. Then we did a simple Rage Essence craft until we got int, slam for all attributes, or if we got all attributes, slam for int. That's how you get the suffixes. And then Vision Craft. Vision Craft basically means suffix can't be changed, scour, block mana, slam twice. And you just repeat this, and you do a null saves until you get two T1s, basically. T1 life and T1 ES are the mods we're going for, and that's how we finished off the ring. As for the boots, we did a pretty similar process, but instead of that, we went for a Abyssal Socket with strength, and then doing a suffix can't be changed, Reforge Chaos to get that Chaos Res on there, and then Vision crafting until we get T1 life, and then Ashling to get the movement speed. Of course, after crafting all this gear, we did divining the items, where you divine the suffixes first, then you craft suffixes can be changed, and then you divine with that mod on there, which means the suffixes are locked, they won't get rolled over, and that allows you to divine the prefixes perfectly as well. And we did that for every single gear piece. We finished the amulet off for percent strength, percent int, 1% per 15, T1 all attributes, T1 strength, T1 dot multi, T1 life, +1 fire, just so we could get the extra 1 radius. There's a breakpoint in radius for Righteous Fire. If you see here, it says +6 radius. If I take off the amulet, it is a +5 radius. So that's the importance of that level. It's not really the best in slot for damage. I'm pretty sure getting flat ES might even be more damage than the +1 level. But because of how important the extra radius is for AoE, I definitely preferred this as the affix on the amulet. Following that up, we have the helmet. We went for strength, percent life, along with int, strength, chaos res, life, and ES, and percent ES. That is our helmet. And just to give a showcase of how strong these are in terms of ES numbers, if I were to, for example, take off my helmet, I would lose 10,000 ES. If I were to, for example, take off my shield, I would lose 14,000 ES. These gear pieces, they might look like, okay, that's pretty good, but how much of an impact does that make? It makes thousands of ES difference. These stats are impactful. Every time you get a new min-maxed upgrade, you see the ES number go up by a lot, and that's just in the scaling of this build, where you have so much percent ES scaling and so much life scaling, and then you have a chest piece that turns your life into ES. It gets a little bit crazy. After the helmet, we have our shield. This was actually our final item we made. We were doing an essence craft here where we had to essence until we hit either T1 max fire res, lightning, or cold, because we can convert cold or lightning to fire, and then we'd have to exalt slam on max res, or we'd spam until we hit max res and then exalt slam the plus 3 max res. For reference, if I was just going to hit this with an essence, the odds of hitting max res of any of the 3 types and plus 2 max res with an essence is a 1 in 73,000. It's not something that's very likely to happen. I was fully expecting it to hit it on an exalt slam or an augment craft, but we actually hit this on the essence on stream, which was crazy. It was about 17,000 essences deep into crafting these suffixes, and not only did we hit the 3 max res, we hit 3 max fire, which was the res we were looking for. If harvest didn't exist and you couldn't convert the res, that would have been a 1 in 200,000 chance to happen, and we hit it in 17,000, which is, I think, pretty cool. On top of that, we finished it off with vision crafting, and we got really lucky. This was about, I think, 10 suffixes can't be changed into the craft. For reference, this is a sort of craft when you're doing these T1 prefixes, you're expecting to spend multiple hundred divines. I actually spent about 20 divines to finish these prefixes, which is just crazy lucky, and the shield was a godsend in finishing up. A fun story about the shield here. In the process of us crafting this shield, when we were rolling the implicits, I kept hitting other good shields, and we actually made a mirror tier SST shield for lightning-based SST, and so that was a pretty cool thing to make for the community. It set me back in terms of crafting this shield because I had to keep sinking funds, and there was actually another base I made that's like some GG, plus 1 max power, plus 1 max frenzy, but ultimately, the good news is this just means there's some more cool items for people if you want to make an SST build. This is available for mirror fee, or mirror without any fee. So just there's a little side tangent on that. And then last but not least, our mace craft. Why did I end up making this mace? What's so special about it? Well, the important thing about this mace over Dune, it's not single target, it's all about quality of life. Rampage gives you movement speed and damage while you map, so it's this feel-good mod. It gives you less strength, but overall it feels better to play because of the movement speed. And then on top of all that, the important thing is 3% area per 50 strength. If I were to turn on my Righteous Fire, you can see, okay, that's kind of pathetic. Well, what happens when I put on the mace? Now we're talking. Now we're talking. That's a quality of life upgrade. And on top of that, with this mod here, the attack speed per rampage mod, I have that both on here and on my shield. That means by the time I get to a 1,000 rampage, I have 400% attack speed on my shield charge, which basically just means I'm teleporting around with it and getting stuck on boulders and stuff. But that was the reason for that. Crafting this was a bit awkward. The reason we have 2 bench crafts on here is initially I started out with a mace that had plus 1 additional craft, and then after you finish the item, you can switch the enchant for AoE or LE damage and still maintain those 2 bench crafts. The reason it's a mace, you might be asking, why not a scepter? Scepters have such a better mod pool. The AoE mod cannot occur on anything but a mace, so you have to deal with the fact there is a crappy set of affixes. I say crappy because it doesn't, there's no plus levels. There's no good fire dot multi. There's no good percent damage scaling. You have to deal with that and somehow make an item that's good. And I decided this is the best possible item I could get. Benchcrafted fire dot multi, percent fire damage with an Ashling Unveil, percent AoE with the Crusader mod, and then the benchcrafted damage over time. Ultimately, it's going to be less single target than some Giga Chad Scepter would be, but Dune's already going to be better than that Giga Chad Scepter most likely, and then on top of that, the real reason we're doing it is for the AoE, and it feels fantastic. Popping like the Val Arch's Righteous Fire while you're going through a map, you're just instantly wiping everything on your screen, and it feels really good, and that was why we went with that. So, all in all, this gear costed me a month of my life of playing this game, but hopefully it was for a good cause, and hopefully the end result is worth it. Now, I want to go over basically a few variations to talk about in terms of what I recommend, what is worth going for in terms of the build, and min-maxing this to the utmost extent. So to start things off with, this version of the build is fun for having the biggest AoE number, and if you just want, or not biggest AoE, biggest ES number, and if you just want the biggest ES number, you're gonna rock the content, you're gonna be very tanky. But if you want the absolute biggest tank version of the build, that of course is going to be Mageblood, and this is the reason why I ultimately didn't craft a belt. A lot of people ask me, why aren't you crafting a mirror tier belt? And it comes down to the fact Mageblood is just better in terms of bossing, in terms of being a tankier character, and then if you want to go for mapping, Headhunter is also just better. There are rare monster mods that you will kill them and it will literally double your ES. I started the showcase of this video with one map where I had a Headhunter on, and you can see the ES is 120,000, and that's literally from like one specific mod that gives like 100% more ES or something. I don't know what exactly the mod is. The point is, if you want to min-max this build, it's never going to be a rare belt. It's always going to be Mageblood for tank or Headhunter for mapping and just overall juice. If you want to do 100% delirious content, this thing takes your DPS to the moon because it just ramps as you get those monster mods. And this thing takes your defense to the moon because it allows you to cap res, allows you to go for Tempered by War, stuff like that, mitigation you couldn't afford to do. Or if you went to Standard, you could even do a Legacy Melding of the Flesh and have 90 max all res, and this would cover the res downside. You wouldn't go for Tempered by War in that case, but you get the idea I am talking about here. Now let's go into Path of Building to showcase the differences between these two trees that I'm talking about. Now keep in mind, this is still a very tanky, very strong character. We're over dot cap, feels good. Yes, this is nice for a Stygian Vise, but how much better could it be if we pulled out the basically tank version of the build? Now currently, we're at 300k to lightning should be closer to 300k, but I don't have it maxed. If I had like 6 more lightning res, this would also be quite a bit higher, but that's neither here nor there. This is a fairly, actually very quite tanky build, and it's not going to die too much, but if you want to min-max the tank of the build, it would always be a Mageblood, and you can see that pretty clearly if I go to the Mageblood setup of the build, and I switch the tree to the Mageblood setup, and it's a pretty simple switch. It's basically swapping this area for this area and grabbing Tempered by War. We go from a 300k max hit all the way closer to 500,000 max hit, which, for those of you wondering, the only one-shot mechanic in the game that can kill you at this point is the ultimate nuke from Uber Eater. And if you take the build to standard and you add a legacy Shaper's Touch, that attack no longer kills you, because it doesn't hit hard enough as far as I know, unless you stand in a lot of the debuff that adds up increased damage taken because it gets a little bit nutty with a Legacy Shaper's Touch. So that should give you an idea of the extra tank going for Mageblood banks, and maybe gives you an idea of why I didn't want to craft a rare belt, because ultimately this is the belt I would recommend if I was going for either a Mageblood tank setup or an all-around QOL setup. For example, if I was doing QOL, the only difference really would be is I would change the flask slightly so that way I still had access to Soul Ripper. So I'd lose my Chaos Res, but I didn't really need that. The only really scenario I ran into needing Chaos Res, in my opinion, is if you want to do Uber Cirrus. That's the only fight that does enough chaos damage where it actually is relevant. If you want to like stand in the storm, you need the Amethyst Flask. But for everything else, this is plenty fine. And then on top of that, I also went for the AoE Mace for Ultra QLL if I was going to do it. But that's my recommendation if you're playing the build. But hopefully this gives you an idea of the different possibilities. And then, of course, if you were doing mapping content, if you wanted to do Juice Delirium content, the Headhunter is just a play. There are monsters you kill that can double your ES. You double your ES, get in strength or massive shrine, get a defense shrine. All that stuff is stacked up. I had one guy telling me he was playing my build. He hit 750,000 at one point with a Headhunter, which just seems crazy to me. I'm sure that was the stars aligning with both a massive and a defense shrine and the perfect set of monster buffs, but you get the idea. When your ES starts to go up that high, the single target goes up with it, and you're just mowing down 100% delirious content like it's nothing without even any fear in the world of dying. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what this character can do. I am excited to basically present you guys with this build I made, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed the progress all the way from when I started it a month ago to where it is now after we crafted the crazy gear. But I'll be honest, I've missed making builds for just, you know, on a regular basis, trying different things out, experimenting. So I'm excited to get back into that. And I'm going to leave you guys with a showcase of this build doing, for example, Feared without pressing buttons, and AFK Feared, where I just have like cast and damage taken, body swap just to teleport to the bosses to do damage to them. So as always, hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Take care, Exiles, and peace out.
At least die with some flair. Grip of the infinite. A veil of safety and security. Twin terrors. Take this vitality boon. A veil of safety and security. Take this vitality boon. Another challenger.
Embrace my sanctity.
A veil of safety and security. Shadows, rise and fight. Time to uptake this vitality boon. A veil of safety and security. Tight tethers. Such wildly delightful desperation. Now go retrieve more challenges for the next round.